Welcome once again to Pale Balloons and Beyond. Thank you for joining us. Adrian Williams is a Welsh singer and guitarist who was a founding member of 60s R&B band Pieces of Mind. The unit formed in the fall of 1963 and lasted until the summer of 1969. No album was ever released during that time, not until 2015. However, there were many gigs and support slots for bands like The Who, Georgie Fame and the Blue Flames, David Bowie, Gene Vincent, the Moody Blues, and many other notables. Adrian then joined Judas Jump, the band that was touted at the time as a prog rock supergroup. Judas Jump released one album and 3 singles before calling it a day in 1971. Then in 2013, there was a Pieces of Mind reunion concert, and 2 years later came the band's first album, Born at the Bosco. Better late than never, right? Adrian and the reformed Pieces of Mind started gigging again, and just this last March played a series of shows called the Last Fling Tour. Is it the Last Fling? Only time will tell. Now, before we continue, I do want to thank John Duxie Reardon, lead guitarist with the band. He was my first point of contact in reaching out to the band. Thank you, John, for hooking Adrian and myself up for this chat. All righty, Adrian, welcome.
Hi, Greg. Yeah. My God, that's a long time ago, isn't it? And to go 50 years without seeing each other. I got to say, when you were talking about the albums, like the Pieces of Mind and the Judas Jump thing, because Judas Jump, even though they were all great players and we were managed by Don Arden, who was a famous gangster manager in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and in fact is the father of Sharon Osbourne.
Ah, right.
We'll get on to that because I went out with her for 5 years before Ozzy managed to take her off my hands and marry her. Fantastic. Thank you, Oz. I'll always be grateful for that. So because he was the manager and obviously with the connections he had in the UK music industry, I came back from Germany to join Judas Jump. So that was the remnants of a band called The Herd, the Mindbenders, in Corner. And I sang with them. And I mean, the most notable thing about Judas Jump was really the 1970 White Festival, where we played with the Doors, the Who, Jimi Hendrix, and the rest of them I can't remember. There were 500,000 people watching the show, but I literally can't remember who else was on. We all got a bit whacked out and like that. I remember seeing Hendrix.
Let's go back a few years before that. Let's go back to the where were you born?
Newport, Monmouthshire, in South Wales, which is quite an unattractive town. However, a port town. So we were lucky enough to have American music come into the port of Cardiff and into Newport, and we used to have the likes of, Lightning Slim, John Lee Hooker, Memphis Slim, Lightning Smith, Silas Hogan, Muddy Waters, all that stuff used to come in. And as kids, we all loved all that black stuff. And it was so interesting when we played with John Lee Hooker with the Pieces of Mind in, it must have been 1964, we played with John Lee at a local ballroom. And afterwards, playing with him was weird because he doesn't stick to a strict 12 bar, like a normal. He goes and it's like, where the fuck is John Lee gone with that? He's like, whatever. But anyway, he was just a lovely, lovely gentleman. So we talked with him afterwards, and he was saying that he loved to come to the UK because it wasn't as racist. I mean, we were all we loved all of us loved black music, and the red carpet was rolled out for guys like Muddy Waters and John Lee Hooker, and it was interesting to me because he told me he didn't have the vote in his own country in like 1963 or whatever it was, and it's like, how is that? How can that be? These guys were all lauded by the UK public. Eric Clapton, the Rolling Stones, Jeff Beck, all these people. We were all playing all that stuff. We're all playing all the same stuff, And it was all that black thing, the Robert Johnson stuff and whatever else. And so when they did come to the UK, it was phenomenal. They never had a band because they couldn't afford a band. So that's why they had to pick up a band like ours to back them or whatever else. So that was interesting in those early days of Newport and picking up the sounds. And then of course, Stax and Motown came along, which were just incredible. And the Stax show came to Newport and came to Cardiff rather. And to see Sam and Dave, unbelievable. It started with Booker T and the MGs into the Barkays. Conley did a little bit and Carla Thomas. And then Sam and Dave closed the show. And I said, I think Duxie was with me. I said, Otis Redding's never going to follow Sam and Dave. They were just amazing. And he did, of course. Otis Redding was just fantastic. So that early education of all of that American music, because we all loved, I mean, you've talked to British bands through your life. And America was what it was all about. You know, we all loved Elvis in 1956. I'm like, I don't know, 9 or something. And Elvis, Eddie Cochran, Gene Vincent, all of those guys, Little Richard, obviously. And so it was all about America and get it in a band. The idea that you could sometime maybe go to the States and play that was the dream. So all of these boys, the Beatles and the Stones and all of those, you know, I mean, that's the dream, to go to America and play. And I never played there, but I've seen when I was working on the other side of the business for RCA and Sony, and I used to spend a lot of time in the States. And I love American audiences because they're so appreciative of people who have been around with a catalog. I mean, for instance, Phil Collins in the UK, everybody takes the piss. It's like, the geezer's brilliant. He's had some fantastic. He might not be doing it now, but then you put on In the Air Tonight. It's unbelievable, you know. And Americans are not like that. American audiences are much more receptive to stuff, and this is why to jump a long way in when you talked about the Pieces of Mind album that we recorded in whatever it was, 2015 or something, whatever it was. I used to work with the Manic Street Preachers when I was at Epic, and Jamesy from the Manic said, hey, you can have our studio for nothing. Dave Ehringer, the producer who produces the Manic, said, well, I'll do it for nothing, because I knew these guys anyway. And that is my favorite record, the album of the Pieces of Mind, rather than Judas Jump one, because it was done as live. Right. You know, you just say, right, we're going to do Hoochie Coochie Man. Okay, bosh, in G, bomb, 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 off you go. And it was just a thrill to do it live like that. But anyway, I've lost my thread. I forgot where I was now.
All right. Let me ask you, were either one of your parents musically inclined at all?
No. Well, my father, my mother's English, but my father was Welsh and quite nationalistic. And we used to, they didn't like Sinatra or anything like that. When I was growing up, we didn't have that kind of music in the house. And I kind of like Frank Sinatra now. So we had a lot of Welsh choral stuff. So there was a lot of harmony sung. And actually my favorite song ever is a Welsh song called Myfanwy. It's absolutely beautiful. It's still my favorite song. If I was talking contemporary, it would be Muddy Waters' Mannish Boy. But Myfanwy, unbelievable. So we had that in the house. But when it was decided to get into the rock and roll thing that started in the UK, kind of around the Beatles time, the 60s, you had Elvis, and then he went to the army. Then we had Bobby Rydell and Bobby V and all of that, and it all got a bit ordinary. And then thankfully the Mersey Beat started with the Beatles and the Swinging Blue Jeans and all of them, the Stones and everything. So London was the place to be in the early 60s, early mid 60s was the place to be. And for a young kid like me, it was like, well, yeah, I'll have some of that. Because I was in school with a careers guy, and he's looked at my grades and he said, what do you want to do in the world? I said, well, you know, I want to travel the world. I want to make a few balls. I want to shag as many girls as possible. And he looked at his list and he said, I don't think we got anything like that. How about becoming a fitter and turner? It's like, what the fuck is that? A fitter and turner. So I'd always had that thing about doing something else. So when Duxie, him and I worked at a steel company, and I used to just sing around the building and just whatever was going on at the time. And he said, why don't you come and try out with our band?
Yeah.
And so I did. And you might not know this, Greg. I don't know whether you've been in a band, but I'm supposed to be the singer, right? So I'm there, and they're saying to me, because they're all players, what do you know? And I said, well, Johnny, be good. Go on, sing it then. And because you're all shy and nervous because you've never done this before, I'm going around a little, you know, I'm in G apparently, right? So roll over Beethoven, everything's in G. So we come to the show, the first show on the Sunday or whatever it was, and they do their guitar bit to start with, Apache and all the whatever it was, Kon-Tiki, and then Duxie announces, I want to introduce our new singer, and we're playing Lucille in G. But obviously, I'm too excited because there's all these girls in the front all screaming, because that's what they did in those days. Yeah. And I just lost I was like, whoa, I don't know what key I'm in, but it certainly wasn't G. And we lost 2 members of the band immediately. We came downstairs to the dressing room, and they said, if this guy's staying, we're going, because he's shit. And so Duxie, to his credit, stayed with me, and then you learn as you go along. And then our band became the biggest band in the area in South Wales in the 60s. It was, we did really well. So it was all about Duxie kind of staying on the program and helping me out with my tuning and key and all the rest of it. So we had a great time. And as you mentioned, you know, we were fortunate enough that there was the guy that ran the music store in Newport was also the local promoter. Okay. And so when the Who and Bowie and Mojos and Mersey Beats and whoever came to town, we would support them. And I recall just a little thing before you ask me something else. When we played with the Who in January 1966, we had the balls to play My Generation as our final tune, right? And we were giving it plenty, and the crowd know us and they like us, so it's all right. But we go into the dressing room, and Roger Daltrey has literally got Pete Townsend up against the wall, because both Townsend and Moon are off their tits on whatever. I don't know what they were using, whatever, but they were off it. And Daltrey, although he's only a smallish guy, is tough. Yeah. And he's holding. And I said to Duxie at the time, this lot are not going to stay together for very long, are they? I mean, they don't get. He's hitting them all. He was so aggressive with everybody. And now I see that they're on tour now in 2023. I mean, it's extraordinary that they've survived that kind of thing. But
you never know, and all the instruments that they destroyed along the way, you know.
Oh yeah. But I mean, to be fair, my God, the energy of these early bands, and I know, and it's very wrong when you're my age to have a pop at the local whatever's going on there. And I think Ed Sheeran is a very clever boy, and there are other people, Paolo Nutini and whatever, and Taylor Swift, whatever. They're all very thing, but it's the energy. And I became a huge Springsteen fan through the 70s and the 80s, and my Christ, he was. I know he still does it, but I can't go and see the show anymore because I worked with him when I was at Sony anyway. But I love those 70s, 80s Springsteen shows with the energy, the soul, the connection with the audience, which is imperative. There's so many people who don't connect with their audience.
Right.
And Van Morrison's a great example. Brilliant singer, but never says "hold" to anybody. He doesn't say thank you for applause, and he doesn't.
Right. Yeah. I was lucky enough to get to see Bruce one tour, and I agree. Yeah, it was the energy, like you said. It was there, and I love his earlier stuff too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, and speaking of a band that kind of got, well, of course, Manfred Mann was around a long time in the early 60s and stuff, but when the Earth Band, I mean, they were just left and right covering Bruce Springsteen songs,
Oh yeah.
And and they got a whole new life really off of Bruce,
Well, that's coincidental. You mentioned Manfred Mann, because it was because of them. We supported them, and Paul Jones said, "Your band's good. You should go to London." Now, you won't recognize this because you live in Texas, Greg, but in the '60s, Newport to London it's like the fucking moon. It's a long way off. I mean, they've got a motorway there now, a freeway, right? So you can get there in 2 hours. But in the olden days, it took forever, and it was another world. You know, we were all Welsh, and it was like sheep shaggers, and then London was all like serious people up in London. You had to be from London or from America to make it. The Beatles broke because they were like supposed working class, even though they weren't. Coming from Liverpool, making it happen, made you feel as an outsider, like where we were. My God, we could. And Paul Jones, the singer of Manfred Mann, said, "Band's great. You should take them to London," which is what we did. Except Duxie didn't come with us. But what I took, that's reminded me of something else. Can I tell you another one?
Yes.
We played with a great band called the Mojos, Stuart James and the Mojos. They had a hit called "Everything's All Right," a #1 record, brilliant record, and we supported them as we did in South Wales. Anyway, Stuart said, "Why don't you guys come up to Golders Green, come up to London and spend the weekend with us and see what it's all about, because we like your band, we like this and that." So, you know, a compliment, right? So we all go up to London, and this must have been, it was 63 or 64, I don't know what it was, something like that. Anyway, through the weekend, Stu says, "Well, what are you listening to?" And it's like, "Well, I'm listening to like Silas Hogan and Robert Johnson and all of that, a lot of the things I've said before." He said, "What about this?" And he played Wilson Pickett's In the Midnight Hour. Yeah. Are you joking? That is unbelievable. So Wilson Pickett, James Brown, Otis Redding, Sam and Dave, Booker T and the MJ, all of this soul stuff all weekend. And I love it. So I wrote the rest of the boys in, Duxie and everybody else, to say, "Listen, we got to be doing this. We got to drop Good Morning Little Schoolgirl and all the shit we're doing and do this soul stuff." Okay, let's do it. So on the drive back to Wales, we're all picking it out down in the valley. Otis Redding, Wilson Pickett's In the Midnight Hour, Arthur Conley, Sweet Home Music and all. Anyway, the first gig we do is in the valleys. You know, in Wales, I don't know whether you ever heard of the valleys. They're all up. You've got the towns by the coast, like Newport and Cardiff. And where the Manic Street Preachers are from is Blackwood in the valleys. And Ebbw Vale is at the top of one valley and Rumney is at the top of another. And they are, it's wrong to say they're inbred, but it's got that kind of vibe, you know?
Yeah, okay. I got you.
So we're God, I hope no Welsh people are listening to that. Anyway, so we go to Ebbw Vale for our first show doing the soul stack stuff, right? Anyway, the stage is like about 2 feet high. So we're, you know, knocking it out, going through our chops, bit of "Hold On, I'm Coming," You Don't Know Like I Know, but we'll In the Midnight Hour. This little schnorrer comes up to the stage and he says, "Play Johnny Be Good." I said, "We're not doing that anymore. We're doing all of this gear." So off he goes. 5 minutes after, he comes down again. He said, "Mad Merv wants you to play Johnny Be Good." I said, "You tell Mad Merv, sling your fucking up, because this is what we're doing." 5 minutes after that, it's like the Red Sea opens up and this big geezer is wandering down the fucking and I've said, "Duxie, this guy is going to rip my head off and shit in the hole. Get into Johnny Be Good." And he just, Mad Merv, got to the stage and just, and we had to play it 3 times on the bounce for Mad Merv. So it was a bit difficult in those days to launch into the soul stuff and try and move on as a band. And as it turned out, Mad Merv became our protector through the valleys, because wherever you went, because you used to kind of interfere with their girlfriends and everything when you were going up there. So they didn't like that, a lot of the boys, obviously. So we had Mad Merv protect us when we used to go around the valleys. But so that was a little how we changed from being an out-and-out R&B blues band into being a bit more soul-y.
So he was kind of your security agent.
Yeah.
So
that was all good.
Well,
But in those early days, though, I mean, you see, audiences. I used to work, like I said, with Duxie and the Steel Company before we went pro, and you'd see these girls in the office, and they wouldn't give you a second glance. Then they'd go and see you on stage, and they'd be trying to tear your strides off.
Right. Yep.
Just pulling you, screaming, pulling you, because I had hair then, pulling, everything. It was mental. I mean, the time was incredible. I mean, I wouldn't miss it for the world. It was fantastic. So yeah, so that was the pieces, and then unfortunately, Duxie decided he didn't want to come to Germany with us.
Okay.
You know, when Paul Jones said you should take the band, to London.
Yeah.
And three of us, the drummer, the keyboard player, and I, went to London, and we had to find a bass player and a guitar player.
Well, let me ask you. Let me ask you about Germany. Why were you? Why do you think you were so popular there?
Well, I think because you're British, at the time. We were in Hamburg kind of 3 years after the Beatles. Mm-hmm. So, and all the hookers spoke with a Scouse accent. They all spoke like girls from Liverpool. Do you want a folklore? It's like, what? You're German, and you speak like that. So it was extraordinary, but the way through it, we got an agent in London, and the guy, he was a German fella, and he said, I'm gonna send you to the Top 10 club in Hamburg. And now the Top 10 and the Star Club were the two clubs the Beatles played. Right. So we were obviously familiar with it. But I said, can we go to somewhere like Saint-Tropez or Rome or somewhere different, somewhere sunny, Barcelona, somewhere? No, you're going to Hamburg. Oh, for fuck's sake. Anyway, we had to do this audition, and because we'd only just picked up the new guitarist Vic, because Duxie had to be replaced, and a fella called Bruno on the bass, who was a demi-Schwarz, but looked good enough, but couldn't play very well. But he was a very nice guy. So we've been together for 3 days, and we managed to cobble together just 3 songs. So we had to have this audition with this guy from the Top 10 club, and we've done Last Night into You Don't Know Like I Know into Hold On I'm Coming as a 3 thing. And if the guy, and then we played him, and he said, yeah, if he'd asked for any more, we wouldn't have known any more, because that's all we had. Anyway, he said, we'll see you next week in Hamburg. So we drove to Hamburg. The van broke down in Brussels. We had to spend one night in the British consulate car park underneath, freezing to death because the van had broken down. That's the first time I ever smoked a joint. I was so fucking tired, and it's like, God. So Kubi had rolled this motherfucker, the Cheech and Chong fucking split.
Yeah,
we've done that. And then anyway, we eventually arrived in Hamburg. And of course, because we'd only just got together, we knew 10 songs. We just knew 10 songs. Yeah. So in the first set, we're playing 6 hours a night, every night, right? But there's 2 bands, hour on, hour off. So it's 6 hours a fucking night. So halfway through the first set, we've run out of tunes. It's like, and you're doing long solos and everything else. Can you string it out a little longer? I loved, my father was a little bit annoyed because obviously he fought in a war. He was in the RAF, and I had a German girlfriend. It's like, you're not bringing her home. And fucking German and everything. But German fans were brilliant. And we would play till, it was like 6 hours, like I said. So 6 a.m. you'd finish. And this is when, and a lot of people took the old slippery slope, and we used to have to take these things Captagon, which were uppers, just to keep you going. And then some people would take downers to sleep. So it's no wonder that there were a lot of casualties in those days of people overdoing the drug thing.
Mentioning in the opening about a lot of the bands that you played in support of, talk about some memorable support slots. And
well, there were. I mean, the Stu James one, because we got the invite up to their place, up to Golders Green, was very good. Mm-hmm. Bowie was interesting as well, because I went on when I became the promotion director at Sony. I obviously worked with him again, and he was at RCA. So I met these people in another kind of phase of my life. They were still doing it. I'd moved on to the business side of it. But in terms of, and I know you'll appreciate this, when you talk to people from the industry, you don't really talk about their foibles necessarily. You can do self-effacing stuff, that's cool. Take the piss out of yourself, absolutely cool, but not of anybody else. So in terms of, I mean, I remember when the German thing, when the Pieces of Mine wanted to come back because they didn't want to be there anymore after about 3 years, I joined a German band called Almond Harvest, and we used to do all Vanilla Fudge and Spooky Tooth stuff. And they used to tell me off for not knowing the words because I only used to learn the first verse and make the rest up because we had so many songs in the catalog. You're never going to learn 120 fucking songs. So I just learned the first verse and the chorus and make the rest up, because they were German. How were they going to know? It was one of those. Anyway, when I joined this German band, because we did a 4-part harmony, I had to sing all the proper words. And it's like, Christ fuck. Anyway, we did a tour with Vanilla Fudge. I absolutely loved at the time. I don't know what year this would have been. Vanilla Fudge, You Keep Me Hanging On. I mean, you're familiar with them, Greg. You're not old enough, I don't think, for Vanilla Fudge. Yeah. But I remember seeing Carmen Appice, the drummer, playing the last post on a cymbal, just bending the cymbal and tapping it. Fucking hell. He's unbelievable. What a drummer. I mean, all of them were great. I know they wanted to get rid of Carmine, the guitar player, because they wanted my mate Jeff Beck to be the guitar player.
He sure did, yeah.
And then the Mafia drove him off the road because it was a mafiosa band, the Vanilla Fudge, apparently. Okay. And they didn't want to change the unit because it was all good. And Jeff was driven off the road. That's the story. Whether it's true or not, I've talked to Beck about it, and he didn't confirm one way or the other. He definitely left the road, that's for sure. Yeah. So, but he didn't say whether it was the mob or whatever. Yeah.
Well, we'll never know now, since he's gone.
Yeah. He's gone. What a guy! What a guitar player!
Right.
Yeah. So yeah. So Germany. I mean, there were loads of stories around Germany and playing for gangsters in Germany. And
what about venues? What were some of your favorite venues?
Well, I mean, I love the Top 10 Club and I love the Star Club in Hamburg. I mean, one night when we were on a break at the Top 10, I went around the corner to watch Ray Charles at the Star Club. Fucking hell. Ray fucking Charles. I mean, unbelievable.
Through those almost 6 years you guys were together, why was there no album or singles or releases at all?
Yeah, well, do you know what, Greg? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to it, but there was so much fun being had. And just to be in a rock and roll band, I mean, we actually didn't care whether we got paid even. It was that kind of thing. You were just so excited to go out. And because the audiences were so effusive, they're so up for it. It was just a joy every night to go out and go mad on stage and do whatever you did. And and it was interesting. When we were in France, we went down to live in Aix-en-Provence on a ranch for 6 months. In fact, we got banged up on the way down there. We had a van. And there was a hole in the fuel tank. And so you fill it up, and obviously half of the fucking fuel's gone. Anyway, in the olden days, you could give guys a passport in France to fill your tank up because they knew that you couldn't get an hotel without a passport. Yeah. Anyway, we're playing in Bordeaux. And by the time we get to the Loire, I don't know whether you're familiar with the geography of France, but the Loire's about halfway down. We've run out of passports. So we've done a runner. The guys filled it up. We've driven off. The fucking gendarmerie have caught us. We've gone to court. We've gone to the magistrate. To cut the long story short, he liked our story. We're in a rock and roll band. We're going to Bordeaux. We got a gig. Here's the contract. He gave us the money. He's fined us for licking the petrol, whatever that was. I can't even remember. but he's given us the money to get to Bordeaux. As long as we come back in 2 weeks, because we got Bordeaux for 2 weeks, and then Toulouse for 2 weeks. So if we're back in a month to pay the fucking fine, all is cool. Right. So we go to Bordeaux. Then we have to go get the passports back because we can't stay. You know, the guy who's promoting us has got the hotel. So the drummer and I get the short straw. We go all the way up through bloody France, getting these passports back. So we did the Bordeaux thing. Then then we went to Toulouse. And we did the 2 weeks in Toulouse. On the last night in Toulouse, the guy said, "Oh, pieces of mind, love you. Okay, we want to book you in Aix-en-Provence. Where the fuck is that? Right? We're in Toulouse. Aix is like 400 fucking miles away. It's like Texas, fucking France, right? It's huge. So we say, well, yeah. We'll do it. We've forgotten all about the fine and all of that malarkey. So we go off to this ranch in Aix-en-Provence and we have to play 3 times, the Saturday night, Sunday afternoon, Sunday night. It's like a very curious French thing. And the guitarist and I used to go riding around the Camargue through the week with the boss and everything. I mean, it was the most unbelievable time of my life. It was unbelievable. Anyway, manager came down from London and said, we got a recording session booked, so you got to come back. We want you to make an album, you know, it's been long enough, you're together and everything like that. And we had another night in Nick for putting posters up because they thought it was political when it was for another band or whatever. Anyway, that's another story. So we spent 6 months in this ranch in Aix-en-Provence, and this guy who had a horse farm in Vietnam, but when it kicked off over there, brought his family back from Vietnam and lived in Aix-en-Provence. He gave us $2,000. This was 1967. So he gave us £2,000 English pounds, which was all right.
Yeah.
You know, just as a present for our record. Anyway, on the way back, and you used to swap over driving the van. You never stopped the van. You just swap over as you're going along, you know, on a straight bit of road and drive a fucking roadblock. It's only the same gendarmerie that have nicked us for stealing the petrol. We go to the gendarmerie in Saint-Jean-Samoret-Turin, which is near Tours. And there's a big table of pâtés and cheeses. We're celebrities. Apparently Interpol have been looking for us because we've run away from paying the bill, paying the fucking fine, whatever it is. And anyway, we go to the court the next day and it's all those old women knitting like at the guillotine, the French women, English bastards, all of that. And we see the same magistrate who was a gentleman, an absolute gentleman, gave him the fine money. I can't remember what. And we come outside, we're sitting on the steps because we're out of dough. We've given him the fine. We got no fucking money to get back to England. And he came out and he said, boys, you can go now. You've paid the fine. Everything's cool. You know, we're sorted. We can't get back to England. And he gave us money out of his own pocket. And to this day, Greg, I can say it, to this day, I regret we never paid that dude back. What a fucking gentleman. What a fantastic person. And we should have given him the bloody petrol. I mean, it's 50 years ago, 60 years ago. So he's unlikely to get it now. But yeah, there are some nice French people. When you hear stories about Frenchies, they're not, there's some of them are all right.
They're okay, yeah. Well, so you guys must have gotten paid pretty well for your live shows. Is that how you guys survived, basically, off of the live shows?
No, but I mean, you didn't need much. I mean, I think, Christ, at the Top 10 Club, this is in 1966, 67. So £60 a week is like $100, I suppose.
Okay.
So that's all we were getting, each of us, $100 a week. But the great thing was, in those days, they used to pay for it. They'd buy you stuff. They'd buy you everything. You never had to, pay for food or clothes or whatever. They just look after you. So when I was in this German band, and Alan Jones from Amen Corner called and said, we're forming Judas Jump, and we want you to come and sing with us. I was going into the studio with a German band, this one I told you about that we toured with Vanilla Fudge.
Right.
Who were brilliant. They were the best musicians I've ever played with. They were phenomenal and great singers as well. And I was very happy in Germany. I loved my time there. But my mother wanted me to come home, my brother, the band, and it was like, and Don Arden was managing. So it sounded like a good project. And so I came back to join Judas Jump. But it was a bunch of pretty boys, there was 6 of us who were on the front of girly magazines. And I wasn't writing music then. And the music that we did on the album, Andy Bown wrote, and it was much better than I could have ever done, but it wasn't hit material, and all you need is one song. If you got one song, the rest of it'll be all right. So we could do it live. The band, everybody could play. Like I said, we did the Isle of Wight, we did Plumpton Festival. We headed over Richie Havens. I thought that was sinful. Richie Havens way bigger. Yeah. So we did a lot of big shows, and we did a lot of TV and a lot of, just that flim flam shit, without not really loving being in the band. And so that's why it only survived for about 18 months, because you got 6 people going different ways. Charlie, the bass player, went off to work with Poco. Henry Spinetti went off to work with Eric Clapton. Andy Bounds with Status Quo. Trevor, I don't know what he did. Alan did fuck all, and I went on the other side of the business. So it was like everybody went a separate way.
Let me ask you about this, because it was supposedly a super group. Were there super egos in the band?
Well, not really.
Really?
That was a thing coined by the media, the music media at the time. They loved to call it when we did our what they called press show, in front of all the media and everything else. We had Stevie Marriott and Peter Frampton come to the show and say nice things about the band and all of that. There were people like and Justin Hayward and just people that you've heard of would came to see Judas Jump and said they liked it and everything. And it's like, all right, well, whatever. But it was if you've got 6 individuals in a band and you haven't grown up together, you've got different musical. I know it's an overused expression, musical differences, but there certainly were, and that's kind of difficult to pull together when you've got a kind of nominated leader in Andy Bown, who wrote the stuff and was a good player and everything, and wrote all right stuff. It just wasn't big hit stuff. And then Don Arden went out and found this fucking song from Italy called "This Feeling We Feel," which is disgusting.
Yeah.
And I did it in Italian as well. There's a fella who lives in Los Angeles now, Armando Gallo. He's a journalist. I spent the greatest afternoon in Battersea Rise in London getting pissed up on Chianti, learning fucking "This Feeling We Feel" in Italian. Fucking hell. But the song was awful. But that was the one that got more airplay than any of our other ones. And it was one of those. If you're in a band and it comes on the radio and you're thinking, fucking hell, that's me. No, it's that. And that's the interesting thing with the Pieces of Mind thing. I don't know whether Duxie sent you the album, but there are things on that record that I listen to, and it's like, oh, I like that. Yeah. I actually can say, I like that. The playing is great. We've got a great sax player in Rick, and it's quite nice to listen to. Whereas I've never listened to the Judas Jump album ever. Yeah. I've never heard it.
Yeah. You're hard, like you said, you're hard pressed to find a song on there that you want to listen to again. You're right. I think it's gotten good ratings over the years just because of the rarity of it, and because it was a one-off kind of a thing. But as far as, I'm glad you said that, because I've listened to it over and over, off of YouTube, and it's like, it just kind of,
oh no,
it's there. It just kind of, it's there.
There's not one thing on there that would inspire me to listen to it again. It's so crazy though, because I told you, when I was working at Sony and I used to go over to Madison Avenue and see the guys over there, and there was a fella who was head of A&R for a small label, and he used to gush about, I've had to autograph all this stuff. I thought he was taking the piss. I said, you want me to autograph this shit? And I'd be signing all these fucking photographs and albums, and it's like, you're having a laugh, because that is rubbish. That's just ordinary bollocks. But anyway, he liked it. So, Greg, there's no accounting for taste. There's somebody out there will like the crap that you turn out. It's extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. Well, I did want to ask you about the album cover for Scorch.
Okay.
Who was behind that? Did you spray paint yourselves, or what?
Yeah.
How did you get that?
Well, it was Don Arden's idea.
Okay.
And it was a good idea. And we went up to the Vogue building in Hanover Street in London. And we had a Vogue photographer, and they all sprayed us. You can only spray to your waist. Yeah, that photo shoot was, but this was the thing about that band. And I think it's kind of illustrated in the music as well. It was a bunch of, because at the time everybody was young and looked okay. So it was a bunch of pretty little boys, and we're thrusting into these kind of situations with all screaming girls, which is fucking brilliant if you've got a really great song to go with it. Yeah. And so we had all these other things going on, and the goldness, and it was all different in the gatefold sleeve. Have you got the gatefold, or you got a single fold sleeve of it? There's a gatefold.
Okay. No, I don't know.
And it's good. I mean, the sleeve's good. If the music was as good as the fucking sleeve, we'd have been to the races.
Right.
But it wasn't.
Well, I wanted to show you, the first time I saw the cover, I thought it was a Stooges album. I want to show you. Are you familiar with this one?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, Iggy and the Stooges.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. It was a Stooges album. When
Very similar.
Yeah, it is. Especially Iggy up front.
Yeah.
With his hairstyle, and it's got that gold.
Yeah, because I think if you've got a single cover, you got Alan Jones on the front, whereas on the gatefold, I'm on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the gatefold opens up, and it's me, Alan, and then the boys like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I was always thinking it was a Stooges album when I saw it, and I was like, even still when I see it, I immediately I want to think Iggy, and I'm like, no, it's Judas. So, well, that was one thing striking about the band anyway, was that cover. Well, what happened when the band kind of splintered and went different directions? What happened?
I think I said earlier on, because I'd been living in Germany for 3 years, I didn't have a chick in London. So the receptionist at Jet, I'll have a pop at that. I didn't realize it was Don's daughter, Sharon, right? Sharon Osbourne. So her and I had a 5-year relationship. You know, I was with Sharon. So I moved in. We had a flat. The boys, 3 of us had an apartment with Henry, the drummer, the bass player Charlie, and me. Next door to Gino Washington and the Ram Jam band, and there was a band called Highway upstairs, a right old rock and roll block. So we never got any sleep. We were off our tits. There were fucking women all over the place. It was fucking mental and brilliant. And then I hooked up with Sharon and went to live at the family palace in Wimbledon with Don Arden and his wife, David Arden, the brother. I was with her for 5 years, and they put together this rock and roll band. A guy called John Beatty on guitar, fella on bass from Arrival, and Henry, my mate, Henry Spinetti on drums. And we had a little hard rock band, only in rehearsal. And we were doing kind of AC/DC stuff, that kind of, not their songs, our own songs, but in that style, because I've always been a kind of rock person.
Yeah.
And again, and it was kind of learning from the Judas Jump experience, really. We didn't have a proper song, one like we didn't have Paranoid.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't have that one song, that one kind of Sweet Child of Mine thing that says, my God, never mind about anything else. If you got Sweet Child of Mine, it doesn't fucking matter. And we didn't have it. And so we kind of decided not to do it. And Don and David were very keen for me to sing with something else. But now I'm 25 now. So it's like, do you know what? I've had such a laugh doing this. I'm good. So they were forming their own record label, Jet Records, with ELO, Wizard, Roy Wood, and a load of other things. But so I did a little shtick as a sales rep. I hadn't worked for like since I left the Seal Company, and then the German thing, and then the Judas Jump thing. So I hadn't worked properly. So I did some work for Transatlantic Records and then Warner Brothers. And I like Warner Brothers actually, but then the old man decided he wanted me to come in as a promotion guy for Jet Records. So that was all cool because even though he was a naughty boy, Don, Judas Jump, I don't know whether I'm allowed, I suppose I can. Judas, we had, you know what a record company advance is, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So there were 6 of us in the band. So this is 1969. We have a deal with Parlophone Records. It was the biggest deal Parlophone had done since the Beatles for fucking Judas Jump, right? They obviously hadn't heard the music. Anyway, the deal, as far as we were concerned, from Don, was 37 grand.
Yeah.
So we split it up. Andy and Alan had the six apiece, and the rest of us had 3 grand apiece. 20 years later, Don's son David tells me the actual advance was 250K.
Wow.
Now, Don had a reputation. I do love him. He's dead now, so I can say whatever. But I did have a lot of time for him. I admired the way he did things, but he was a gangster.
Yeah.
So he ripped us off at 200 odd, whatever it was, grand and whatever. But then I did live with him for 5 years with his daughter and like that. You know, so I don't have an axe to grind about that.
Yeah.
But what was I going on to say about? And then I went to work at Jet, and we had like Britt Eklund, and we had ELO, and ELO at the start.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff Lynne is a fucking, well, we know now he's an out and out genius, but nobody knew then. However, you know, his early band, The Idol Race, was good, and both him and Roy Wood, and I love Roy Wood as well, and I love Roy's vocal and everything else. But they were pulling in different directions a little bit after the first album. There was a bit of like, I want to go this way, I want to do more like that. So they're from the same town in Birmingham, and both of them lovely fucking people. Roy especially nice, and went on to have a big career in the UK with Wizard and a load of hits. But Jeff Lynne has got something else going on. He is fucking incredible. He's a secondary school boy. He didn't have a great education, bit like me, been out of school at 14, all of that. But he comes up with lyrics. It's like, where the fuck did that come from? Right. And the melodies. So it was always going to happen. And unfortunately, Don Arden being Don, did what he normally did and lost ELO because of finances and stuff. And it's easy now to say, God, if you'd held on to Jeff Lynne, who went on to be in the Wilburys, produce Dylan, Tom Petty, Roy Orbison. I mean, the list is fucking endless. And be a genius, a fucking genius. Yeah, you wouldn't have ripped him off. You'd have looked after him. Right. But those early days, I remember he came into the office. I think out of the blue, was number 1 in the States because they were bigger in the States than they were ever in the UK. They're big in the UK now, but they were always huge in America. And out of the blue, a double album was huge in the States. And he was still driving around in his mate's Ford Escort XR3 and living in a fucking flat in a shithole part of Birmingham. It's like, I should be a millionaire. I am a millionaire, but you're not giving me the money. So it kind of that's how it fell apart. And I have since, because ELO was on Epic when I was the promotion director for Epic. So I've seen him since and spent time with him in LA and and he's still the same. He's still got Newcastle Brown in the fridge and watches Birmingham fucking City, shit football team and all of that. And he's still the same. He's a lovely individual. He's an absolutely special individual. And the talent that comes out of him is an extraordinary. You always know a Jeff Lynne produced track. You can hear the acoustic guitar and the vocals. I mean, vocally, he's incredible.
Right.
And so I love him. And like I said, with Roy Wood, and just before you ask me something else about Roy Wood, when I was working at Sony, a big friend of mine was Charlie Wayne, who was the singer of The Move. You've heard of Carl, right?
Yes. Yes.
So Carl and I, because he was in the West End doing musicals and theatre.
Wasn't it Carl Wayne and the Vikings?
Carl Wayne.
I mean, in the Vikings earlier on.
Yeah, it was Carl Wayne and the Vikings before The Move.
Before The Move, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, and The Move, what a great look they had. What a great looking band. Bev Bevan, Ace Kefford, Roy Wood, Carl Wayne, and Trevor Burton. Brilliant. But it was Carl Wayne and the Vikings before that. Yeah. Carl Wayne's real name, Colin Tooley, but never mind. So so we all call him Charlie, right? Charlie Wayne. And Charlie and I were really great friends, and we used to see each other for lunch kind of every fortnight when I was at Sony and all of that. And he told me that Roy wanted to go to the States and do it because he'd never done it with The Move.
Okay.
And you got bands like not the Chili Peppers. Who am I thinking of? Cheap Trick. Cheap Trick loved Roy Wood's music and did a couple of covers, right? So the three of us are having lunch, and I'm working at Sony, but I said, I'll tell you what, I can do some stuff for you, Roy, because I love you and like that, and Charlie. So Charlie's going to go on the road with you, but I'll put it all in place. So the idea was we're going to take a 4-piece to the United States in a tour bus. We're going to do all the shitholes and work up through, right? A state at a time. So let's say Chicago, we go to Illinois or wherever Cheap Trick and whichever state was the one where they kind of embraced Roy Wood. Because in America, you got to build it state by state, I thought, right? Anyway, all is cool. He loves the idea. We got a bass player. We got another guitar player, a keyboard player, drummer, and everything else. Charlie's going to go out on the road. 2 weeks later, we have a lunch, and Roy says, I love the idea. I want to do it, but I want to take my 14-piece girl band. Fuck off. What are you talking about? You got a Greyhound bus with 14 chicks and that's not going to work. They're all going to want to be paid. They're going to get periods. It's going to be fucking nuts. So it fell apart. And so Roy never did the USA. And he should have been huge. I mean, like your Iggy's, and you were talking about the Stooges and all. I mean, Roy Wood is a proper character. And, Blackberry Way, all these things he wrote, Flowers in a Rain, Blackberry Way,
right?
All these things, a Fire Brigade, a catalogue of unbelievable. So the idea was to do the Roy Wood story. So you do The Move into Wizard into Roy Wood.
Yeah.
You got 2 hours worth of brilliant material. God, if Judas Jump could come up with one of his fucking songs, we'd have been off to the races.
Yeah. Now Roy Wood is an interview I would love to get. Yeah, that is one that I really enjoy. I would enjoy talking to him.
I'll try and get hold of him for you.
Oh, are you still in contact? Yeah.
Well, no, but I can call him.
Okay. Tell him how much you enjoyed this and how wonderful, and this was just a life changing moment for you. Okay, and then maybe he will.
Not that great. It's a check in the post.
Right. There you go. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's
so
go ahead.
Yeah, that's Jet. That was the Jet days.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about, let's get up to 2013. What led to the reunion show?
Actually, yeah, kind of. Well, I'd retired by then. I retired in 06.
Yeah.
When I was 60. and moved out here in Ucene, the fucking thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And I used to go back and forth because my sons have always been sportsmen, and so I used to go back and take them to the next pool sports event, whether it was swimming, football, or rugby, or whatever they were doing. So I used to fly back into the UK kind of bi-weekly. And an old bass player friend of mine who was with me in Germany said, let's go for lunch and have a drink and talk. So this would have been 2012 probably. And something came up on the TV that said, it's the Rolling Stones 50th anniversary that year or whatever it was. So I said to Rob, fuck, next year it's the 50th anniversary of the Pieces of Mind, because I had more love for the Pieces of Mind than I did for Judas Jump. It's obvious in this kind of chat we've had. So I said to Rob, wouldn't it be really cool to get in touch with these guys, the ones, you know, we know some of them, we don't, and had numbers. And so we arranged, the drummer was then living here in Spain, in a house down the hill from me. And we had some numbers and names. And so the people that came and went from the Pieces of Mind would amount to something like about 15 or 16 people. I was kind of the only constant throughout the thing. I don't know why, but it kind of just worked out that way. So anyway, we got in touch with everybody, and there's a major hotel in Newport called the Celtic Manor. And we all met up, and nobody recognizing anybody because everybody looked so different, you know, we hadn't seen each other for 45 or 50 years, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so we're all chatting away, and it's great to see everybody and what you do and what you did and the damn and, you know, usual flim flam shit. And then Duxie says, we should play a gig. What the fuck? It was like, because people don't do it anymore. And then, as the evening goes on and a few more desperados are sunk, you're kind of thinking, whoa, okay. I mean, I haven't sung since, well, 1970 or something. So we booked a rehearsal room, went through it, and there's a DJ over here who's a good friend of mine. He's one of my motorcycle mates, Johnny Walker. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's a big DJ in the UK, and he's my age. And we used to do lots of trips to the US together on motorcycles and stuff. And I said, Johnny, how about coming down and introducing the band? So there's a big thing, Pieces of Mind from way back when, Johnny Walker, the blah, blah, blah. All this for a cancer charity in Wales. Couldn't buy a ticket after about 4 hours. It was fucking mad. I mean, not the biggest hall. It was on, I don't know, probably 1,500 or something like that. It wasn't like huge. Anyway, we played, and there were club owners from different parts of Wales who came up to Duxie afterwards and saying, well, God, we want to book your band and do it. And it's like, we don't want to do any more. That was it, you know. It was a fucking shambles. There were too many people on stage and all that. Anyway, obviously we did do it again and honed the band down into like a 9-piece, which is manageable. And I don't like to say because it sounds so fucking conceited, but the band's good. You know, the band is good. And so it's a joy to be in front of them. Well, Duxie's a great player. I mean, he's a great player. He can play all sorts of stuff, and he's really, really good. The sax player's fucking brilliant. The keyboard player, who's no longer with us, is excellent. So you've got all those elements there, and so it was an absolute joy to do all these shows. And I don't know whether Duxie told you, but we were invited to do a BBC television program called The UK's Best Band or something.
Yeah.
And there were 1,200 bands who had applied to do it. And I don't know whether it was, I mean, it didn't harm the fact that I'd been in the industry and I'd had some friends in the business and whatever else. But anyway, they invited us to do it. We came 7th out of 1,200 bands. And it was such a brilliant experience because we took the piss. I mean, there were people who were really serious about, like, we want to win this. We don't give a fuck about winning. We're just very happy to just show off, you know. And so that was another highlight of the Pieces thing. The recording of the album at the Manic Studio, the release of the album, the TV show, and we've done some major kind of things for charitable events, which we're kind of pleased about.
I think that's great that you do for charity. I was gonna comment on that. I think that's wonderful. For hospital. Brentwood. That's another one, the Brentwood Festival.
Well, that was because the guitarist that came to Germany with me, Vic, the replacement for Duxie, who can't play anywhere near as well as Duxie, but he's a good lad. He came to Germany and he lives out. He's a London, talks like that. He's from London, you know what I mean? Oh, it's that lovely, jubbly. So he talks like that, and he's from that area. Yeah. And so he got the show in Brentwood. So we did the Brentwood Festival with, I think Midure was on it, and a couple of others.
717. I thought it was a bit of an odd pairing with these other. It was kind of like a 1980s theme show. Midure,
and then with us.
Go West, and then with you. Yeah, it was kind of okay.
Yeah, it was weird, but I think it had got to the stage where it was just playing, you know, because we kind of enjoyed playing thing. And it was on reflection, you're right. Nobody thought about it then. We used to have a few drinks and get up there and fucking go for it. It was just like that. So there wasn't an awful lot of forethought in it.
Yeah. Well, talk about the recording of the album. How did the sessions go? Born at the Bosco.
Well, yeah, I told you when we kind of we had this kind of debate about, wouldn't it be great to make a record now that we've come back together and all of that, and over the years people had said, you know, from Paul Jones from Stu James to all the people that we played with had said you should be making records and everything, and we never did when we should have. However, the musicianship now is patently better than it was then. Duxie's a better player now than he was. The drummers have slowed down a little bit. That's a bit of a problem, because obviously if you're a 60-year-old drummer, you're slogging away and you're puffing like a twat, and you can hear him blowing rather than the fucking snare drum. But anyway, we had the conversation, and like I said, because of my relationship with the Manics, who were a big band in the UK. Don't know anything in the US, but they're just lovely Welsh boys, and I just asked them if we could use the studio. I mean, we were going to pay, and they said, no, just fucking take it, just have it. And then to have Dave Ehringer, who just produced the Daltrey record and the Wilco record, come in and just do it for fun, just because the relationship. So we went into their studio and like put everything down as live. And nighttime is the right time. We learned that day, and that's why I'm singing the same verse all the way through, because I don't know it, and it's all the same verse. And the song that because Andy's the songwriter in the Pieces of Mine, so there's I think 3 from Andy. Whatever they're called, I don't know. And I wrote something called Into the Light. I've never written a song in my life. And that was now, and when we did that one, again, it's that nervous thing, because you've got other people who write songs, and you're the schmuck who's just come up with something, and it's like, really? No, we want it on the record. Oh, fuck, okay. But the sax solo redeems the song, because the sax solo is out of a Van Morrison fucking solo. It's fucking brilliant. And when he played it, when Rick went into the thing and did his bit, I literally had a tear in my eye of emotion of the sound he was getting. Yeah. Because that song's very ordinary, but his playing just elevated the whole track into something else. And I was so delighted with it. It was brilliant. So the process, the actual recording process was great. Everybody got on great. The producer was awesome. Dave Ehringer, brilliant guy. And the result, we all loved and still do. And the picture and the idea, because it's called Born at the Bosco. The Bosco was the first date we ever played as a Pieces of Mind. And the Bosco Hall is a Catholic hall in Newport. Mm-hmm. And it just so happens, I mean, it just worked. Born at the Bosco. It just, it just trips off the tongue. It's good. So that's why it's that.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that you guys still had the magic after all those years.
Well,
and yeah,
it was a joy to do, though, Greg. It was it's one of those things, and you can't really. It's difficult to describe. If you're a musician, and you're in a core of, and you're all doing it. It's like recorded as live. Mm-hmm. You're all in it together, mm-hmm. And there's an energy and a soul and there's adrenaline kicking on, and it's all one go. There's no like 2, 3, fucking 4 takes. It's like if it ain't good the first time through, it ain't good enough. I always liked Eric Burden and people like that who used to just like one go. Let's just do it.
Right.
Fucking about. Jeff Lynne, would go back and play that bit in and that bit in and that bit. I mean, it was perfect, obviously, because he's perfect. But I never saw that. I like that kind of loose Rolling Stones vibe, where there might be a bum note, but who gives a fuck? Most of it's all right. I like that thing. I like that kind of just rolling with it, and I like the energy and the soul of it rather than being precise about it.
Like a live recording, Well,
I remember I love Dire Straits and Mark Knopfler. Obviously, you got to love him. But that thing about if you got the first Dire Straits album and then you go to a show, why are you wasting the money on the ticket for the show? Go on and put the fucking CD on, because nothing happens on stage.
Right.
They play it brilliantly, but you might as well sit at home with a fucking Domino's pizza and a glass of whatever.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, so our thing with the Pieces of Mind was there was always energy on stage. There was always a lot of life, a lot of movement, a lot of fucking about. And Phil, the drummer, although he was an excellent drummer, but Keith Moon was his kind of thing. So when we went down to a 4-piece with Duxie, Andy, Phil, and I in Wales, Pieces of Mind, it was all kind of Who related, dancing in the street, that Motown stuff like that. And Phil would be doing all his thing with the drums. And when you've got girls screaming at your drummer as well, you're doing all right, because usually they're at the back. Nobody gives a fuck. But it's always the singer or something who's getting all the attention. But when you got the drummer as well having it, your band's doing okay.
You played other gigs and live shows since the reunion and that. Favorite or memorable ones?
Actually, well, my memory. I think my memory's all right. But the last one we did, I didn't want to do. And it was in Newport, where we're from, obviously. Mm-hmm. And my mate Alan Jones, the Amen Corner guy who I was in Judas Jump with, he books the show. So we did a show in Ebbw Vale for one of our guys that died, and give the money to the cancer charity and all of that. And then we had to go to Newport the following night to play at this is Alan Jones's club in Newport. And I didn't want to do it. I just wanted to do the one and come back to Spain and like that, because I'm lazy as fuck. And we went there, and it was absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. We played good, but to see these, because it was billed as some kind of like all the mods in Newport who have all grown up and are all our age and everything now, all showed up.
Yeah.
And it was just extraordinary to see all these people who were saying, "Oh my God, we can't believe you've come here and you've done this and you're playing all this stuff and it's taken us back and we love it and we love you." And it was, I mean, it was really gratifying and just properly special. I mean, it was like I could even cry thinking about it now when people are coming up and saying, "My God, we love you. We love this and we love your band. We love not my band, our band." And but it was great. It was so that was really great. I mean, there have been memorable ones over the previous time. I mean, probably the first time when we got together and did that one. But we also did. There's a comedian over here called Rod Gilbert who's now got throat cancer, and he's the one who did the TV show with us. So we did a show for him at the Globe in Cardiff. It's about 3,000 or 4,000 people, and that was good. And again, it's that thing about you don't know it's good until afterwards when you come off stage and people are saying, "Do you know what? You love it." You know, when people love it, it's really gratifying. And now it's like you want to talk to the people and find out how they are and whatever else and like that and da-da-da. Yeah. So it's and on this last one that I'm talking about in Newport, the guy that did the TV show came in from Cheltenham. The director came in from the north of England. A girl that I used to live with that used to help us out, works for the British Embassy in Belgium, flew in. People flew in from all over the place to see this particular event. And it's kind of nice, that kind of shit, when that happens. So even though that was the last but one, and it was supposedly the last, it's like you said in the intro, I don't know, will it be? I mean, we're all fit. We're all right. I mean, I got prostate cancer, but I'm all right. You know, you get on with it. So we'll see. If we're still around, we'll do it again, no doubt.
Do it again. Well, have you noticed any younger fans in the audience when you play?
Oh, in the audience, they're definitely, whether they're fans or not, or whether their parents have dragged them along and said, "You're going to fucking watch this." I don't know. But my now girlfriend and her daughters, she's got a 16 and a 24-year-old, and apparently they like the sound of the band. So I don't know whether she's told them to or whatever. Could well be. Do you know what, Greg? I'm quite happy with everything that goes on. It's life's good.
Yeah.
I'm all right.
Well, I did want to ask you there seems to be, because I've interviewed 2 or 3 other UK expatriates that have relocated to Spain. What is it about Spain that's attractive that people seem to relocate there?
Well, I mean, the most obvious thing is the climate's better than it is in the UK, right? Yeah. It's marginally cheaper to live, but there's a lot of bureaucracy, that EU bureaucracy. In fact, I'm going through it now with my motorcycle. I'm trying to change over to a Spanish plate, and I'm having problems with that, and it's a fucking nightmare. But life, I mean, generally, I just think it's a healthier lifestyle, food-wise, and everything. I really like the Spanish. I mean, you got it in Texas anyway. I like the Spanish language. My Spanish is not great.
Right.
I can get by. You know, I can eat. I can get a bunk up. I can drink. So that's kind of my priorities.
¿Dónde está el cuarto de baño?
Cuarto de baño. Well, we got Puerto Banús. Well, the baño's down there, so we're good. I mean, I love the language. I like Spanish people. I like I'm still a road guy. I mean, I love motorcycling and cars or whatever in a kind of like American way. Yeah. And so this country down here in Andalus, it's a bit like California anyway. It's got a similar kind of territory. But the cities of Salamanca, Segovia, San Sebastian, Barcelona, Sevilla, they're beautiful. You know, just to go to them, and see what's going on and the vibe. And you know this, Latin people, I mean, the good Mexicans, I'm not talking about El Chapo, the good Mexicans, they always have a smile on their face. They have a laugh. They haven't got much. They have a drink. They have a bit of, I've done me margarita, but I'm going to have another one in a minute. You know, there's more, I don't know, they seem to enjoy life more. And I find down here, Latinas, there's just more life.
Yeah.
You know, in the UK, you're worried about paying your bloody energy bill. The trains are on strike. The nurses are on strike. That this is fucking, fuck off. Yeah. Stop it. Get off the bus. Move somewhere you like and like that. Yeah. I mean, I'd nearly moved to Los Angeles because I got friends out there. Yeah. Just because I do love American stuff. Yeah. But I do also like European stuff. But America's changed so much. My last girlfriend and I, 3 years ago, had a road trip around California and Nevada and San Francisco, because I'm a San Francisco 49er fan. That's why I was asking. You're probably a Cowboy fan. Okay. But anyway, I'm a big San Francisco fan. And that city, that when I went there with Sharon Osbourne in the early 70s, aesthetically, the most beautiful town I'd ever seen. Yeah. And it's Clint and it's fucking whatever. Yeah. Joe Montana and Clint. It was like, whoa, I love San Francisco. And when I went there in 2020, what a disappointment. People sleeping on the street who have a job, but they're sleeping on it. And I find this with American cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco. Oh, it's the richest country in the world, and there's all this poverty going on, and it's shooting this and shooting that, and it's like, fuck off. I don't want that.
Right. Yeah.
Wyoming was always my favorite state, but it didn't have any ocean. But I think to have such a big old area with only 450,000 people living there, that's fucking good. You haven't got all those wankers having a pop. So I like that. But yeah, I'm a fan of America, big time.
No, but I've appreciated it, and again, I'm gonna thank John, but you thank him as well.
Yeah, I will do. I will do it. No, it's a pleasure to talk to you, Greg. Great.
Yes, it really was with you too, Adrian. I knew it would be. I always have an inkling, you know, before I just by emailing with somebody if I'm going to enjoy it and it's going to be a good one or not. And this definitely will be a good interview. So all righty, we'll continue. You know, whoa, yeah.
No, that was me. That was me.
That wasn't an earthquaker. Okay.
No. We do have them though.
Okay. Well, continued success to you and all that life brings you, and thank you again for your time.
You got it. You got it.
We'll be in touch, and I'll once I get this edited down some, then I'll send you the link and you can post it and let everybody know. Okay, cool. Good, Greg. Great to meet you. Okay, well, you go enjoy the rest of the day, okay? I'm going to. See you later. All right, adios.